China, North Korea. Will we ever get there? I personally don't think so. But
And the DA has fallen for it. This doomsday scenario. That isn't our problem.
they didn't fall for it. They created it. There
Whatever.
was never doomsday until they manufactured it. So there's no falling for anything.
But I'm saying
at all.
On the State of the Nation, we really like to bring you some of the most interesting voices to talk about the South African condition. And there is nobody who is a more interesting voice in South Africa than my guest today. And that is Penwell Mlotshwa, the Black Pen, host of the Convo Show, one of the original podcasting pioneers. Join us at our State of the Nation business breakfast at the Sandton Convention Centre on the 16th of July. Our guest speakers include activist Rob Hersov and well-known media personality JJ Tabani, as well as me, your host, Mike Sham. So if you're interested in joining us at our State of the Nation business breakfast, see the details below. We look forward to having you there. In South Africa, Penwell, welcome back.
Mr. Sham, thank you for inviting me back. I guess I didn't burn the building down, so
No, you
I was invited back. But I just want to say kudos to you, and I want to give a shout out to your platform for people that are watching. Pace Rental, your sponsor. I'm hoping that a lot more people out there are going to see the value of these platforms. Not to capture us per se, but to see that, number one, we are credible. I think credibility is very important. And number two, to see that we have an audience. And in the spirit of trying to change what media is supposed to be, which is more authentic, we need people to come and say, look, we will invest in you, but we're not doing you a favor. We're also going to make business at the back end. So shout out to Pace Rental. I've seen them here. I've seen them on other podcasts.
Yeah, on Sizwe show.
Dr. Susan Pofwalsh, SMWX. So I hope this is going to be the beginning of a change in the media space in South Africa. But thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no,
I appreciate it.
It's great. And on your point of sponsors, it astounds me, the kind of numbers that we get compared to mainstream media, but yet companies will go and pour money into the mainstream media, advertising newspapers and television that everybody's not watching the adverts.
We know why. But over time, they're going to see, especially if we can help the smaller guys start punching above their weight. I think they'll start seeing the shift. Almost every dinosaur corporate, whether it's banking, media, etc., that refuses to pivot and change, suffers the same inevitable end. So if they don't move, they'll learn soon enough.
But maybe as a start-off point, what that may be showing to you and I specifically is that the world has changed, and if you want to call it, the establishment are always going to be the last people to recognize the change.
Yes.
Because there's a change, and we've spoken about the advertising, but it's symptomatic of a bigger issue. People are watching shows like yours and mine to get information, right? This is where people are being influenced, not on the news on SABC. And I think that South Africans must understand we already made a difference in the 2024 election, what you and I had to say and other podcasters. It's just going to grow to 26, and by 2029, we'll be the most important voices in media. There's no doubt.
Hopefully. We've got a responsibility, so I hope we'll tread carefully. And in the same context of sponsors, we need to be very careful as podcasters or as alternative media that we have the right conversations with anyone who's bringing money to say, listen, we can grow and become big, but once you are now controlling the narrative and once we're no longer authentic, we're going to suffer the same problem that others do. So even the people who own brand need to understand that the conversation has to change. The world has changed. Social media, TikTok and the like have changed. So if you still want to copy and paste the same old models, trust, even if we get sponsors and we get big and we get studio space, it's going to be a matter of time before other younger, more authentic voices are going to come and steamroll us. Yeah.
Well, we'll just keep on doing the best that we're doing. And you have had, your show really has reached a wonderful mark, over 230,000 subscribers, in some cases millions of views. You've had some really, really interesting guests. Right now, am I right in saying that the guest you'd like to have on your show most is probably Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi?
The difference between me and other podcasters, I think at our level, is I don't chase stories, which is very frustrating for my audience. my audience always wants to hear my voice on topical issues, and they always wish certain guests could come and sit with me. The problem is me. And maybe I'll change in time to come. It would be nice to sit with General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, but I don't chase trends. I would prefer to sit. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I refused to sit with ex-President Jacob Zuma a day before the elections last year. I didn't want to do just a typical media spin to say, let's just campaign for MK a day before. I want to sit with him and literally have a conversation about his life, his politics, his family, etc. So if I was to sit with General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, yes, we could speak about what's trending now, but every other news platform is doing that. I'd want to speak about something deeper. I'd want to speak about the things that are sort of questionable, maybe about his character and his rise. I think Jacob Zuma may have snubbed him at some point. The conflicts between the police at the higher levels, why it's convenient for him to speak now versus in the past, how we're supposed to deal with the police, raise concepts like, should police, like in other parts of the world, have body cams to try and outroot corruption and the like. I'd want to have those conversations and not so much asking the same typical questions that he's already answered in his press briefing. So I don't chase trending stories, and I know it frustrates my audience. But there are so many other guests I'd like to sit with. Number one on my list in the country would probably be Nikki or Jonathan Oppenheimer.
And internationally?
Internationally, my two top guests, well, on the continent, it would be Aliko Dangote, the wealthiest African and the wealthiest man in Nigeria. Internationally, if I could sit with Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, and Kim Jong-un, those would be my top three guests. I think after that, I'd probably retire.
Yeah, I think if you speak to those three, you better do the interview in a bunker.
Yeah, so shout out to Tucker Carlson, because he sat with Putin, and that's quite brilliant.
Yeah. Although he did shine his helmet. I mean, the guy didn't ask one searching question in that entire interview. It was quite crazy.
That's debatable, to your opinion. Other people were happy with the interview. And I will say this, it must be very tricky for someone like Tucker Carlson sitting with Putin, considering the character that Putin is, to maybe not step on too many toes. Because it's cool to try and represent your audience. It's another thing to potentially put your own life in danger and your career in danger where no one ever invites you to anything ever again. So you need to be very strategic, even in some of the questions. And we cannot be so naive as to expect him to fully represent us. Similar to people like myself, maybe expecting Cyril Ramaphosa to say whatever to Donald Trump. It's way more complicated than we'd like to think.
Yeah. Well, you see, that's where I've got an advantage over you. I'm old, white, and cranky. I couldn't give a damn anymore. Like I say to people, I'm uncancelable. What could you do? What am I going to do? Go on pension? Big deal. Nearly there anyway. But tell me, let's work our way outward. Let's start off with South Africa. What do you make of South Africa? When we last sat, it was, in the build-up to the election last year. We subsequently have the election, government of national unity, with all the drama that's given. And South Africa just seems to be, it's almost like one of those movies where it looks like maybe the pilot died and the airplane's on autopilot and nobody really knows how this thing's going to land. I mean, what's your take on the South African condition at the moment? You speak to some really interesting people.
The biggest issue we have in this country are the people that own our economy. I think when it speaks to accountability, they need to be the most accountable. I know a lot of us speak about the politicians, understandably, and I'll explain why. But to be honest, the biggest issue we have is, number one, old money in this country, and number two, foreign interests. These are the people that fund our politicians. These are the people that make money in this country. These are the people that, for whatever reason, are either investing in employment in this country, or the destruction of our infrastructure in some other way. Politicians and political parties cannot exist, cannot be visible without funding in this country. I'm not sure about other countries, but in this country, you need a decent amount of money, multiples of millions, to be considered really eligible to sit in parliament. Which is why one of the questions we keep asking is, where does Umkhonto weSizwe Party get its funding from? And they say it's from people fundraising and volunteering and those things. It's a cool story. It's a cute story. If it's true, it's brilliant. I struggle to buy that story. I think there must be money from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Similar questions would be asked when the EFF was registered as well. There are people that are responsible for the ANC still being in power at this level, for the DA, and I think Helen Zille would actually boldly sit on a platform and state that their funders said Cyril is the guy, which means the DA was basically sent to go and make sure that Cyril is still president of the country. This is now from funding. And the biggest funders, of course, you've got the Oppenheimer family in this country. They're well known. I'm not sure about Johan Rupert and some of the other wealthy folk. Patrice Motsepe is also well known as one of the funders. But I can only imagine, outside of the ones that are declared, how much foreign money comes into this country. Some of it is probably direct. Some of it is indirect in the form of, I may not fund your political party, but I'll ensure that certain people in your political party or your allies sit on the boards of our companies. That is, in a way, some type of funding. This includes legitimate businesses and illegitimate businesses. We'll speak drugs. I really think the drug cartel that General Mkwanazi alluded to funds a lot of our politicians at the highest levels. Maybe even threatens them. We don't even know. So the people who make money from this country, a few years ago, I think we had our GDP at 380 billion US dollars. The people who make the bulk of that money are responsible for funding the people that govern the economy that is this country, which is then the ANC and the DA in the grand coalition of what we call the GNU. What they are trying to do is they are trying to morph what was an ANC stronghold into a multi-party future. And they are hoping that South Africans will be willing to buy into this. Why do they want South Africans to buy into this? Because they need political stability. They don't care about the poor. They don't care about infrastructure outside of economic infrastructure. They care about a stable country so that they can make money. And they fund people that are deemed credible. By credible, it means there will be no uprising, there will be no looting, there will be no burning of our companies or potential killing of some of the foreigners that are working and making money in your country. The ANC was that. They thought when Cyril Ramaphosa was put as the head of the country, he would be the guy. He's got credibility in the ANC, he's got struggle credentials, the ANC listens to him, and he's got the ear of business and the international community. But Cyril's credibility is weak on both fronts, and it's been proven. That's why Cyril by himself is not good enough to face Donald Trump. He needs Johan Rupert next to him. Never mind the golfing guys. That was just Trump probably taking a piss and because he likes golf. It's like, I need one of your handlers. You're not good enough. That's embarrassing for wealthy people to say, but is this not the guy? Nelson Mandela, we know, had we'll call them handlers, funders, but he was good enough on his own. Cyril is not. And that's embarrassing for the business community. Similarly, when he goes to the masses, he's not good enough anymore. There were places that he was booed at leading up to the elections. That becomes problematic. Do these people really trust you? Do they believe in you? Are they actually going to listen? Because we need you to calm them down. If a situation like an assassination of Chris Hani happens, can you calm the people down? And if the answer is no, and other people are listening to an Operation Tutula, and other people are listening to an Mkhonto Wesizwe, and other people are listening to any other voice, then maybe you're not the guy. So the people that are making money in this country, legal and illegal, have a responsibility to make sure that whoever's governing this country is credible to the economy, of course, but also credible to the people. The problem with us ordinary citizens is we think government is here to serve us. And that's where the biggest bunch of my frustration has been in the last year and the years before that. Politicians do not serve the poor. Politicians do not serve the majority. Politicians serve the economy and the people that own the economy. What they do for the poor and the majority is they say, look, show those guys that we are the guys you trust, and in return, we'll make sure that you guys have some type of basic services, which we now know over 30 years that the ANC has woefully failed, even at that. Because the rich are saying, we pay tax, bro. We create jobs. We've given you a budget. We'll call it a charity budget. You're not delivering. You guys are looting. Your mates that are meant to be building the roads where our trucks and all those things are meant to be moving, they dilapidated and they're deteriorating. The people are complaining. This is happening. And you guys are actually not showing that you're credible in the responsibility that we've left you in. Because we want to just make money. And right now we're distracted by so many other things because you guys are sort of incompetent in the other things you're meant to be taking care of.
Yeah, just in a couple of things that you said, there's a few things that come to my mind. For starters, the one thing that a few miles on the clock has taught me is that money will behave the same. Right? I'm saying that if I had to drop an obscene amount of money into your bank account, and you would behave exactly the same as the old money. Do you understand what I mean? You might just wear different clothes. And we're seeing that in the play out in the US right now, where the new money, the younger people, Elon Musk, etc., that crowd, the tech bros, are behaving exactly the same as the old steel mafia back in the 1900s.
Yeah.
You know, and the big corporations, etc. When you have money, you behave the same. You know, this is, I think, a thing we in South Africa we need to better understand, because it would help us. Sadly, because of our history, when you say old money, it puts a face on it.
Correct.
But to me, the mistake you make when you think like that, not you, but I'm saying when that thought is done, is to think that would be different. You know, it's like the case we're going to get onto transformation in a minute, but the idea of transformation, like this is going to be some economic catalyst. No, if I made you CEO of a company, a big company that's going already, you're not going to suddenly increase your workforce by 50%. No, you're going to run it exactly the same as your predecessor who happened to be white. It's not going to change. You see it with big companies run by black CEOs. They behave like CEOs.
You're correct. I want to add Patrice Motsepe, Sol Ramaphosa, and some of the B beneficiaries are brilliant examples of specifically what you're saying. Yeah. They haven't changed anything from the older, whiter faces.
But don't think that you would be any different. I'm saying that is nature. You're going to be terribly disappointed if you think that a new breed of businessmen is going to behave differently. They may start new industries, they may start new companies, but they will behave the same, which is to be fiscally responsible so that they can get the biggest chunk of money that they can get as the shareholder. So this idea that transformation will lead to some kind of, I presume what Cyril is getting at is it will lead to some kind of irresponsible financial behavior is crazy to me. It's not going to happen.
Can I counter?
Please.
So you're 100% correct, by the way. And it has been one of the things that has frustrated me. It's one of the questions I've asked. Patrice Motsepe, Aliko Dangote, how are they different from Johan Rupert, Christo Wiese, Nikki Oppenheimer as examples? And the reality is they're not much different. The problem we have, and you correctly raised the history.
So if I may just interject, that's not because of some kind of conspiracy. That's because humans is humans.
Yes.
Right? I'm saying, we kind of get this idea that because Patrice Motsepe is behaving the same as when the Oppenheimers ran mining, that somebody got to him.
Yes.
No, his accountant got to him.
Sure.
To say, run this thing properly, mechanize where you can mechanize, pay your people as little as you can get away with,
sure,
and employ as few people as possible so that you can maximize profits.
100%. So the first thing, and you're rightly correct, you correctly put it with the history, is the issue that we have, which is the legacy of apartheid and colonialism, is that money is white in this country, in a country that is 7-8% white and 80% black. So the one issue that black people have is they'd like to see black faces. If that were to ever happen, you're correct, nothing will change. We see this in other African countries and other places. And I normally use the example of places like China, like America, where there's a majority of, let's say, one race, but you still see the same dynamics. That's the first problem that we have. And that's why many South Africans are like, we don't care what Mike is saying. We still want black faces there, not white faces. We don't care if they behave the same. We'd rather see black faces. And I think that was one of the fights for radical economic transformation, that they just wanted black faces, not necessarily to change any of the behavior. Okay. Number one.
Do you think those black faces would be seen? I mean, let's look at our corporates. If you go to, I recently did a job with one of the head offices of a major bank, and the majority of their staff complement at senior level is black.
Sure.
But yet people still refer to that as a white company.
Correct.
Now, what's it going to take? Is it going to be the complete absence of a white face before we say before we stop calling it a white company?
It's ownership, to answer you just briefly, because Capitec, PEP, Pick and Pay, MultiChoice, if you look at their staff complement, it's probably 95%, 90% black.
Yeah.
So someone could argue, well, that's a black company. But it's an ownership thing, is the short answer. And until ownership belongs to black people, according to whoever's fighting for that, this is not my fight per se, they won't be happy, number one. The second point, I've got 2 more points. The second point was the assumption, which is up for debate, is once you have black faces at a certain level, money will then be redirected. So instead of certain monies going to Stellenbosch, Ballito, Camps Bay, some of the money may go to, let's say, Sundowns, into certain townships and the like. And people are saying, well, maybe we'll get some trickle down, which is why people supported Zuma, because they felt that there were more black tenderpreneurs. There were more black people in SOEs.
And where did those tenderpreneurs live?
Whether that money was being spent in building or recklessly is then where now the problems come. But they were just happy to see that. The third point, which is now becomes the fight for people like maybe Floyd Shibambu and the others, is they want to change the entire political system. So as much as human beings behave the same, and you're 100% correct, they don't want the most important people in this country to be the owners of the economy. They want it to be the governors. And we see this in places like Russia, China, North Korea. Will we ever get there? I personally don't think so. But they believe, and that's what they're selling, that if we were really in power, and this is basically make everything an SOE, nationalize. I mean, we already have Eskom as an example. We had SAA, make everything owned by the government, and then have government and have business account to them. That's what these people are fighting for. But you're 100% correct in saying human beings will behave how human beings behave. The issue that we have in this country that is unique is the fact that we've got the legacies that we have in the history. So it becomes difficult for white people, let me just say white people, to try and explain this to black people, because they're saying, we don't need to hear this from you. Give us the black faces, let them mess things up, let them behave the same, then we'll criticize them. But don't use that as a reason to not transform. Let us be the ones to bash Cyril and Patrice and the others, but we don't need you to tell us, you guys don't need more Cyrils and Patrices because they won't change their behavior. You mustn't tell us that. And then there's other people that are saying, well, that's the reason why we want to change the entire system itself. We don't want tenderpreneurs. We don't want people to own equity in companies and be able to just shift their muscle in media and in the rand, etc., etc. We want government, which is voted for by the people, which I don't think they really believe in, but they want to sit in government and be able to actually be the decision makers.
Now, do you not see to my mind, I see a direct link that, to me, the crime in South Africa is the fact that we haven't seen significant businesses started, competitor businesses started that are black owned.
You think poverty is the reason we have high crime?
No, I think no, and I'll tell you why I don't think poverty is the reason for high crime, because there are many countries considerably poorer than us
100%.
that don't have crime.
100%.
I think that we've got a morality problem in South Africa.
Okay.
I think we've got and that you can lay, to me, people blame apartheid, the wrong things on apartheid. I think that apartheid's biggest legacy was to destroy a family structure.
100%.
Right.
Thank you for that, by the way. Thank you for that.
Which 30 years of the new South Africa, not one person in the ANC, and they've governed all along, has addressed that issue.
100%.
Right. And, we've all spoken about this, and I'd love to come onto your show and talk about white privilege. That is the ultimate privilege at the moment, is coming out of a stable family household.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you for raising that, Mike. I just want to emphasize, the destruction of the family is arguably one of the worst crimes that has been committed in this country, whether you blame apartheid, the British, or even the ANC now. And none of them have been able to, or even have a desire to want to rectify that.
Well, they haven't. They've done naught about it, which is to my mind, the biggest travesty. Yeah. Another big problem, I think, in South Africa, in actual fact, is, to me, the thing that has retarded the economic development in South Africa, which means transformation, has been BEE.
Sure.
Because if you are a really smart, sharp, entrepreneurial black person, right, and it goes for anybody, but right now we're talking in South Africa, it's very easy to buy you off with a cushy role in a big corporate where you become the director of this or something, and you're earning a packet.
Yes.
Or you're in government and you're earning a packet.
Yeah.
Those people shouldn't be in those positions. They should be starting their own businesses.
100%.
But yet, BEE reinforces the problem that you've got a problem with.
Sure.
By taking the best talent, forcing them into these white companies, as you call them, and therefore the result is that we still, 30 years later, sit with the same banks that we had 30 years before. In fact, there's only been one new bank in the new South Africa, and that was started by Afrikaners, Capitec.
Sure.
Right?
You're right.
I'm saying, and the reason is because the best black talent is sitting in corporate and government where it can move the needle the least.
That's correct.
So, to me, that's why I'm vehemently, not just a little bit opposed to BEE, I'm vehemently opposed to BEE, not because I'm trying to protect anything. I'm out.
Sure.
I'm just saying it's a bad idea because you're taking the best of our talent. And let's face it, the future of South Africa is black. There's no doubt about it, right? Numbers don't argue. You're taking those people and you are taking that talent and you're putting them into corporate where they're doing jobs where they're way too qualified for.
Yeah.
But they're not starting their own businesses and they're not doing. And now you have sideshows like the Ministry of Trade and Industry saying we're going to start a transformation fund. Are you crazy? Are you crazy? Rather go to businesses, stay out of it, because you're going to be the government is going to throw that money away, because I can promise you, entrepreneurs have to succeed first before you fund them.
Sure.
That's one of the anomalies in life. I want to go back to something you said at the start, and I can see we're going to have to do part 2. But you spoke about the financial interests, happy with the status quo, keeping this in place, right? Because they want stability, and it almost sounded like you think stability is a bad thing.
It can be, depending on what the outcomes are that you're looking for.
Do you think it's a bad thing in South Africa to have the stability? Because we have had stability. We haven't had great governance. We've had issues, blah, blah, blah. But it's been pretty stable. We've never one night gone to bed thinking, oh, God, tomorrow the revolution might start. And there was a little bit of looting in KZN in 2021, but that was
negligible.
That was negligible.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that, I'm not sure what revolution would achieve.
You're asking my personal opinion now, because there's what's best for South Africans and then there's my opinion. What's best for South Africans is probably a better version of apartheid, where we still have a strong government that bullies people, but allows talented people to live where they want, to work where they want, etc., but to keep everyone else at bay somehow. I think that's what might be best for South Africa for now as a developing nation. Minimal democracy and the like. But that's not necessarily my personal opinion. And to answer your question, if South Africans really want to be one of the best countries and economies in the world, we cannot get there without aggressive instability. It will not happen, because what happens with stability is you have to retain the status quo. You cannot change anything fundamentally. We'll speak about mainstream media. You can't change it fundamentally by staying in mainstream media, and you and I are working for one of the bigger media, what's, and we have to comply. It doesn't work. You have to disrupt. And some of us will swear on our platforms because that's how we speak and that's how the audience engages us. And where we start abiding by and towing the line, people are going to fall off. So we're not going to become brilliant in this country without incredible instability that forces the people that make the most money in this country to engage and have a conversation about what do we need to do. And some of those things include things like changing our education system, changing the way we run the economy to the points that you're raising now. You were speaking about crime. I don't think the lack of businesses is the reason we have crime. You're very right. It's a morality issue. It's arguably a policing issue. It's a family issue, because if our families are not intact and if we don't have morals from home, it's easy for us to do whatever because we motivated in whatever disgusting way. And if the people that govern us are comfortable with undocumented people being here, committing crimes, we can't even track them, those become the issues. However, we do have an issue outside of crime and all these other factors I raised. We do have an issue of people that are not engaging in the economy. And I do think policy is part of the problem. I don't only put it down to BEE. I have my own issues with BEE. If ever we get a chance, it doesn't have to be today. I can articulate why I think BEE is very problematic. And I can agree that BEE must be scrapped if it will carry on operating the way it does now. Specifically because there's, I think, 6 or 7 pillars. Specifically the pillars around ownership, equity, which is where the BEE fat cats come from, and preferential procurement, which is tenders. The other aspects of BEE we need to discuss and see if we need to tweak. Employment equity, making sure that people have jobs where they couldn't. Socioeconomic development, skills development, and the like. Those are very fundamental. Those have done a lot for people, and we cannot chuck those out with the whole of BEE just because the fat cats that are getting equity and tenders are ruining this whole party for everyone else. If someone came to me and said, we want to scrap BEE, we need you to support it, I could say yes, but I would set conditions. Similarly, I've had people come to me say, why don't you support Cape independence? I've never supported Cape independence, but very cheekily I said, I'm happy to support Cape independence if all the people that own businesses in the Cape cannot have businesses anymore in the rest of South Africa. If they cannot benefit from the finances and the clientele in the rest of South Africa. And if they cannot jump in and out of South Africa as they please, because you guys want to ring fence the Cape on the assumption that you'll be able to milk the rest of South Africa. And that becomes a problem. So similarly with BEE, sure, let's scrap it. But if we scrap it, specifically the 2 pillars I'm speaking about, then the people that are benefiting from the legacies of apartheid and colonialism, they must be kept out from benefiting from whoever's governing. Because many people want BEE scrapped, but they don't want certain changes in other spaces. I say this because I hear people saying, I wasn't there during apartheid. I didn't commit any atrocities. My children are not there. Why should they suffer? And I'm like, I fully agree with you. But then your children also shouldn't take the benefits. They also shouldn't be comfortable being at a school that was built and has a great legacy from money that was built or made during apartheid and colonialism. Let them also start at a township school. Let them also, you guys must also start with an RDP. And sure, let's push merit. But you guys are happy to keep the spoils, but then you don't want to account for the atrocities. It means you're not being genuine about actually changing things that need to change. So for me, I agree with you. A lot of black talent is being sucked into spaces. I don't blame BEE. I blame the black talent itself because they could choose the tougher road and go and get into business is difficult for everyone. Yeah. Some of our biggest white success stories struggled. They don't come from wealth. We don't tell those stories.
But we don't want to hear those.
Many people don't want to hear those stories. So those black people must be willing to say, I will jump out of corporate and I will struggle. Number one. Then number 2, government is the other gatekeeper. Because the funds, whether it's a transformation fund, an industrialist fund at the IDC or the NEF or whatever, that money is not going to entrepreneurs. It's not going to good white entrepreneurs that are starting out. It's going to the same white businesses, but now that happen to have a black face, which is a politician or politically affiliated, and they get access to that BEE money, which was actually meant to go to small startups, and not just black ones, but white, colored, Indian as well. But the guys at the top have colluded in such a way. Specifically, I'll mention Anglo-American, Sanlam, Old Mutual, and some of the incumbents that were there pre-94. They made sure that they handpicked the same guys so that they don't have to dismantle much of anything. And the people that are fighting are ordinary black people and ordinary white people. And we're all being screwed by these guys, but we're fighting each other when the problem is actually somewhere else. So if we were serious, again, I blame the wealthy who actually own the economy of this country. If they're serious about building a country that is shooting the lights out for foreign investors, for the local wealthy, for local small businesses, for employees here, for everyone, if they were genuine, they would actually have a different conversation. and not this patch job that they keep doing of let's find the next Mandela, Cyril, Songezo Zibi, who we like what they have to say. Maybe the black masses listen to them, but they're not fundamentally changing anything. And by the time we have an Arab Spring and this country starts burning for real, not those flimsy riots, those people are going to panic. Their black friends are going to run away to wherever. They're going to run away if they already not based overseas. And the people here are going to be left to eat each other. And then after the dust is settled, they'll see what spoils they can come in and pick up. But as it stands now, we've got a serious problem, and we need to have a more aggressive conversation about what it's going to take to make sure that this country can actually move into the future in a better way.
I have absolutely no fear of the revolution. I do not think for 1 second, there's not one shred of evidence in my mind that leads me to believe that South Africa would have something akin to an Arab Spring. I don't see it in the population. I don't see it in the issues. Okay, I think that that's not what we should be fearful of.
Do you think anyone has ever predicted that?
What, that there will be?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that not by definition why it becomes a black swan event? Because no one saw it coming.
But I'll tell you what our biggest. I'm saying, yeah, I'm a pragmatist.
Sure.
If I have to put myself in one school of thought, it's pragmatism.
Sure.
That's it. I just want to get the job done. That's why I think the idea of Cape independence is absolutely laughable.
Sure.
Okay, because the Cape's having a good time at the moment because of the rest of South Africa.
Correct.
So if you suddenly built a 1,000-kilometer wall, right, and the train stopped running, okay, the Ministry of Transport stopped the trains already.
Sadly.
Yeah, but you know, if they were now an independent country, they would lose 3/4 of their income. So big deal.
If we don't allow them to carry on as they're operating.
And
otherwise they'd become one of the wealthiest countries on the continent.
Anyway, let's put it this way. To my pragmatic mind, it's a stupid idea. Okay. Right. So I think you can almost make a better case for KZN independence.
Hey, Ingonyama.
Yeah. Right. But to go back to where the idea of revolution in South Africa, I'm saying that is the deception and you know, the DA has fallen for it. This doomsday scenario. That isn't our problem.
They didn't fall for it. They created it. There was never doomsday until they manufactured it. So there's no falling for anything.
But I'm saying
at all.
This idea that the restless masses are going to rise up. No. To me, the biggest danger to South Africa is that the restless masses just do nothing. They burn the odd tire on some road. They dance when they're angry. I mean, you know, we've got to stop that. If you're angry, don't dance, for God's sakes. You're betraying the fact that you're not really angry. Yeah, I'm saying that to me, the biggest problem with South Africa is not revolution, it's insignificance. And we've got to be careful because we're going down the insignificant route. And nothing proved that to me more than the aftermath of the presidential meeting in the White House, where everybody sort of said, look, these guys are they're not serious people. This isn't a serious country. And you become as insignificant as Malawi or, you know, Zambia, where nobody gives a shit about you.
Jeez, that's harsh.
That is
Shout out to everyone in Malawi and Zambia. Yeah, that's Mike's opinion. That's my take. You guys must cancel this.
You can cancel me all you like I'm talking the truth.
Jeez.
Right? The biggest danger is insignificance. And we've got to be dead scared of that because, you know, all South Africans have grown up in an environment where South Africa was a player in the global scene. When you move away from that, then life gets tough. And
but who was it a global player for?
It was a global player as a country, which means that you do have, you know, Penwell, don't make the mistake of thinking that this is some kind of Mickey Mouse place built on nothing and it doesn't work. No, South Africa works. That's why we got millions of immigrants from across the borders,
sure, but
right?
Benefits who is my question. No, when you say we grew up,
this thing of that becomes a movable feast. When you start saying benefits who, and I'll explain to you what I mean by that, is that if you get it in your mind that that under any circumstances it doesn't benefit the majority, you'll keep on seeing that. Do you understand what I mean? It's as bad as...
So your answer is it benefited the majority?
It's benefited everybody. I'm saying every bit of economic growth, every bit of economic activity benefits the country Could there and should there be more? Should be, hell yes, there should be a shitload more, okay? But what we've got at the moment, don't downplay it. And that's why I go back to that issue of stability. I'm saying that understand what it looks like if we upend this cart.
Do you think our country was better economically during apartheid?
No.
It's better now?
Comprehensively, no. No. We've had better times, right? In the new South
Was our
Africa.
economy not better during apartheid?
No. No, really, absolutely not in my lifetime. It was better in the 60s. But once we started to become the pariah of the world in the 70s and 80s, right, it was not a great economy.
So at which point do you think South Africa's economy was doing its best?
Well, statistically, it's around 1965, 66. Okay.
Oh, so not post 94.
I thought you were talking about...
No, I'm just
apartheid
asking
now.
historically.
No, when we had 5% growth. Because, and I'll tell you why, because, that was around 2005, 6, 7.
You reckon that's the best time of South Africa's
Yeah, but
economy?
even that was average. I'm saying we don't understand. I've got one mantra that I would love if I could get one message across is please understand South Africa chooses to be poor. This is a choice we're making, to be poor, right?
Who's we?
The country.
Who's the country?
The country are the people that elect and the people that are elected to do a job and they're not doing it.
So that's where I disagree with you.
Right.
That's why I go back to my first point. For me, it starts and ends with the people that make the most money from this country. Initially, the mining guys. Today, whatever our diversified economy is, if those guys are not pulling finger, that's the problem. Blaming voters and blaming the governing guys is what we normally do, and it's relatively fair.
I think
But those are the guys. So when you speak economic growth, when you speak our economy, you're speaking to those guys.
Yeah, but
you're not speaking to the average guy. When you're speaking the 60s, you're still speaking about a largely exclusionary economy to the majority of the country.
What I'm saying is that I'm suggesting that perhaps with a few miles on the clock and a bit of experience, right, that you're looking in the wrong place. Business is a reactive thing. Business is never meant to be a proactive thing. Business is there to solve a problem, okay? Not to, it's not business's job to build the roads. It's their job to build the factory that alongside the road, and we end up with great activity from that. Business is a multifaceted thing. In some cases, it's ruthless. It needs laws. It needs controlling. I get it. I'm on board with that. But business itself is not there to plot the course.
So South Africa and the rest of the African continent were formalized.
Yes.
In a scramble for Africa after the Berlin Conference. And every country, specifically Britain, France, Portugal, and others, went to grab. The economy you're speaking about, how you speak down on Malawi and Zambia and the like, has a lot to do with the formalization of this with borders by the British. They didn't do it out of whatever. It had to do with the mineral resources, your Cecil John Rhodes, your Barney Bernardo, your Ernest Oppenheimer and the like. It would be the Oppenheimers who would formalize our government. We didn't have this type of government before that. It would be your Anglo-Americans when they were set up. They would fund the governments from then, National Party, to today. So to sell a story that business doesn't plot the course, including the Dutch East India Company and the like, is a blatant lie of what this country is today. Because we were not living like this before. And when the Europeans came here, when immigrants come here, they don't come here just for the sun. They come here for the economy. They come here for business. It's cute to speak about solving problems and the like, but the problems were built by businesses. The DRC becoming the DRC after being the Zaire, after King Leopold of Belgium, was because of business. The reason we're struggling, the reason Cyril gets funded, the reason the ANC and the DA get funded, the reason Julius gets funded is for business. It's not for the people. The people can be lied to as much as we like. We can lie to them, but it's not true. It's the people that run the economy. At any given time when they're angry, they can choose a different leader. I've got a theory that Russia are the people behind Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso. Russia's not doing it because it's cool. They're not doing it because Africa's such a nice place and the people, they're doing it for business. Gaddafi was taken out for business. Patrice Lumumba was taken out for business. Robert Mugabe was a problem. Zimbabwe being a top economy on the continent because of business. So if we're going to sit here and pretend like business is not the beginning and the end, we're either lying to each other or we're lying to the audience, or for whatever reason, we're trying to spin some story. And I will blame our government. And I've got huge issues with the ANC. I blame them for many things that we have today because they agreed to whatever it is that we have today. And they've been responsible for getting fat while people have become poorer. And I agree with you that this country could be doing so much better, even though it's a colonial construct. But I'm not going to exclude business because they're at the beginning and the end of all of this, in my opinion.
I think that you're on the money with everything. I'm saying that business is complicit, along with a whole lot of other people, and responsible for making South Africa a better place. They benefit the most. I would like to go back to because boy, we got some deep things to discuss, the scramble for Africa. Okay, well, rather let me frame the question like this. Do you think that we should be talking about South Africa in isolation as a country? Or do you think that we've got to point to the problems of other African countries? Do you put it all in one bag?
Before I answer you, you spoke about not revolution, but
stagnation,
apathy of sorts.
Apathy, yeah, insignificance.
You were trying to make a point, and I think what I was trying to counter was, I think until business sees that as a problem, I don't think they're going to invest in it. Because if we want our population to get involved, to get skills, to start entrepreneurial enterprises, and business needs to incentivize it through the politicians that they fund, then our schooling system can change, then our economic climate can change, the red tape can be removed. People will run business, and we will manufacture, and we will farm, and we will export, and the country will make a lot of money. And the people that love money, who invest in South Africa, will make a lot of money. But for whatever reason, they don't want to change that. Whether it's because they're dizzy or short-sighted, I do not know. They would need to explain themselves. But I think that's the issue that we have. And my concern was, as much as people have become lethargic and they've been pacified with social grants, someone just needs to light a fire. And it may not necessarily be born South Africans. It could be foreigners in South Africa. It could be a drug cartel. It could be Russia. It could be China. Someone could be sneaky and say, I'm going to fund some rebel groups who are then going to come and push a revolution. And they will get all the South Africans to be like, you guys are poor. You guys are struggling. Because there is a fair counter for the apartheid government to say, these guys were building infrastructure. Someone just convinced you that there were issues here because you weren't getting this. And whatever they told you the solution was, it wasn't meant to be the ANC. It was just meant to be inclusion into the mainstream economy. That's it. But they came and they gave you this whole package and they sold you this whole dream, which is why you've got certain problems now. They were trying to solve for something that wasn't a problem then. Our parents weren't complaining about certain things that the ANC is pushing today. They were just saying, we just want safe homes. We want good families. We want to be able to also play. Please let us play on the field, Springboks. Please. We're not saying you guys must go away. We're not saying, we love that you're strict. We love that you have morals. And someone somewhere hijacked that. And I'm just saying, in what we're talking about now, someone could hijack this as well. I'm not calling for a revolution and the burning of the country. But I know there are people with sneaky agendas. It happens. That's why we have coups. They come in and they just need to light a fire under a few people. And it wasn't the whole country fighting against apartheid South Africa. There were black people waking up and going to work that were like, this thing is causing problems. And similarly, if ever a revolution comes, it won't be the whole country. It will be a few people trying to topple this government, dismantle our so-called democracy, and saying we want to go against the West and the anti-imperial forces, and whatever it is that they spin. Because they are saying, look, there's money for us to be made and we want to do that. So I wanted to answer that. South Africa, not in isolation, Africa not as a whole. I'm not a Pan-Africanist at all. What I recognize is territory and interests more than anything. And what I recognize is there are business interests. And if we're not the wealthy making money from this country, then we have to speak about our interests, you and I. Where do our interests lie geographically? And they may lie not in Mthatha, in the Eastern Cape, not in Mahikeng, not in Musina. Our interests, for example, are here in Joburg. We're worried when we see that Bree Street has not been fixed. We're worried when we're getting hijacked here. That's our geography. If we want to extend it to the rest of the country, cool. We can speak about it. If we want to extend it to SADC, because maybe you've got family members in Zimbabwe or you've got loved ones in Botswana, we can speak up. That's me and you. If we're speaking on behalf of South Africans, sure, then it's within these sort of colonial borders. And if we're engaging them, then yes, we need to isolate away from the African continent. If we feel we want to speak on behalf of Africans, Africa's a huge continent, then we can have that Pan-Africanist conversation. But that then involves whoever your governors are, Kagame, Museveni, whoever, Emerson Mnangagwa as an example. Then we're speaking about them. And then we also have to speak about who's funding them. And it may not necessarily be who's funding us. And that makes the conversation very difficult because who's funding Kagame? Who's funding Traore? Who's funding Ramaphosa? Are they on the same side? And if they're not, then we can't be having a conversation. But if we're speaking about the same people that are funding us and similar to the British Empire, if Zambia and Nigeria and Tanzania are the same people, cool. We can have a chat because we're sort of aligned. We like America. We like YouTube. We like Nikes. Cool. Let's have a conversation about how we can align so that our economies can then benefit us and whoever is making money from us. Otherwise, then we can't have a conversation with Africa.
Ben, we can carry on all day.
Yes, sir.
We certainly can. But we've reached our end here for this particular episode. The question is whether we carry on and film a part 2 right now or not. We'll decide that off air. But whenever we have Penwell, this could carry on for days. And I'm sure you're as engaged as what I am. But sadly, our time has gone up because I really wanted. There's many issues for us to discuss.
We didn't even go on Mkwanazi, who was your starting point.
Really was our starting point, yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, do you think we should have part 2? I think so. If you enjoyed this, support Pace Car Rental. Go and check out Convo if you haven't. And subscribe to both channels. We'll see you again on the State of the Nation. Every business needs a